Hey, this is Robert Monroe, and I want to continue my series of videos on practical guides of how to do things in music that really target kind of this intermediate range of musicians that are sort of caught in the middle where they know enough to be dangerous, but they don't really know what that next step is to getting better and to get to where they want to be. This is going to be a little more general, though, a little more broad than some of my other videos. I've done one on jazz, I've done one on sight reading, but this one specifically is actually going to talk about a humble goal. And what do I mean by that? We're not going to talk about how to be the best musician. We're not going to talk about achieving all your goals. What we're going to talk about is how do you set this baseline to become pretty good? What do I mean by pretty good? You can go out, you can gig, you can hang with the best of them, but you're not going to be necessarily the most impressive musician. This is just going to show you how you go from where you are to being pretty good at your instrument to the point that you can take gigs, you can have fun, that sort of thing. What does this give you? It gives you general broad principles to apply to your instrument. I'm going to be talking specifically about piano, but to be honest, I just talked to a drum student that I have about these same principles for drums. And what this really is kind of a checklist of 3 things that are going to give you the ammunition you need to be able to know exactly what to practice every day to, again, get pretty good at your instrument. What am I not going to do? I'm not going to dive into specifics. I'm not going to give you a prescriptive route of what exactly to do. If you want that, go ahead and comment below, and I could probably whip something up, but that is not the point of today. Again, point of today is to be super broad so it can apply to everybody. All right, let's get into it. What is the first thing that every musician should do if they want to be pretty good at their instrument? I would say it is exercises. Now, these have specific names depending on the instrument you're on. On piano, we call these scales. Now, there are things called chords and arpeggios and broken chords and other things and patterns. These are all wonderful, but there is a fundamental exercise to every instrument. For piano, it would probably be the major scale. For guitar, you could argue it would be the pentatonic shape. Or you could maybe say it's the major scale. I think either have a good place for top dog in what you're doing. Drums, it's rudiments. I would say paradiddles rate really highly for that. Drummers, come in the comment section and murder me below. But I would think paradiddles specifically, but rudiments overall. You know, you got 40 of them on drums. I know they have way too many. Anyway. These are the things that you practice, and they will just generally, incrementally get you better at your instrument. Why do they make the list, and why are they the first thing on my list? Well, if you want to be pretty good, like just be able to hang, you need to have this baseline. If you skip this step, you're going to be the guy that they ask some random question like, oh, this song's in A flat major instead of A. And you're going to look like you're just, what? How does that work? And you're going to have these spots in your vocabulary, these weak points that just pop up everywhere. And they're going to prevent you from doing what you want to do. You don't want to be that guy. You just want to dive in and make sure you have everything at your disposal. So go ahead. Practice your rudiments, practice your scales with one specific idea in mind, and that is consistency, steadiness, confidence. And I know I said one specific idea because I think they all go together. You want to practice them in the way that you actually want to perform them. That brings us to number 2, and that is going to be metronome work / recordings. Now, what do I mean by this? If you are just practicing and you're just kind of chilling and you're vibing, that's wonderful. And you could do that. And if you're playing just classical and you're not playing with anybody else, who cares? But we need a standard. We need something that's going to let us know, are we ready for prime time? Can we play with other people? Do we actually know what we're doing? And that, to me, more than anything else, is going to be the metronome. The metronome is this undeniable standard. If you can play at 120 BPM, whatever you're planning to play out in public, well, guess what? You can play that at 120 BPM. If you can do it with a metronome, that means that you're ready to play with other people. You're ready to do all sorts of things. It creates this standard, this consistency level, this threshold that we have to match. It's kind of the final boss. I would highly recommend adding metronome practice. And if you don't and you skip it, you're cheating yourself. Let's talk about this second piece, which is recordings. The recordings piece is kind of similar to the metronome, but it has advantages and disadvantages to the metronome. The advantages from the metronome, from recordings versus the metronome, is you're going to get a lot more individual data for exactly what you're trying to do. If you're trying to play Wagon Wheel, play along with the original recording of Wagon Wheel. If you're trying to play gospel music, play along with the original recordings of gospel music. I don't care if you learn by sight reading. I don't care if you learn by rote. Play along with the recordings. It is going to give you the perspective you need to be able to hang with what you're doing. That's the whole point of this video. How do we get pretty good? Adequate, fine. Again, we can talk later about how we get awesome, but right now we're just looking at pretty good, and that is playing along with the recording. What are the disadvantages of playing along with the recording? It turns out it gives us way more detail than the metronome. I know, shocker. And because of that, it actually can be almost a crutch. Because do we really have to know the song very well? No, we don't. We can rely on the recording to prompt us with what's coming next. And it can even hide little mistakes and little things we're doing. So I would highly recommend you need to do both. If you're just playing with the metronome, you're missing feel details. You're missing potentially parts that are on the recording that you don't know. If you're playing along with the recording only, though, you're missing the ability to internalize the whole song in yourself. You're also missing the accuracy point. Some recordings, by the way, have horrible time. And so playing along with the metronome really gives you the ability to have that steadiness. Now, some of you are jumping on me right away going, horrible time. Some of these legacy recordings, they breathe, right? The music breathes, and that feel, that ability to micro adjust the timing is so beautiful. And I am totally in agreement with you, but you should be able to do both, which is why you should play with the metronome and the recording. You want feel and you want good time. It's not a choice. You want both. That brings me to point number 3. This is the most abstract of all of them, but it has to be said. And this is, again, my secret sauce. I think if anything, the last two, you probably like, duh, I knew those things. This third one, though, this is my secret sauce. And that is fail at home and play it safe when you're away. What do I mean by this? I want you to try out whatever the craziest ideas you have and whatever the hardest things that you think would be cool to do on a gig or in a social situation or on the piece you're learning. Try it all at home. Anytime you're in a comfortable environment. And that's what I mean by home. I don't mean physically your home. I mean, some of us practice other places. Some of us has rehearsals with bandmates, at church. That's all fine. If it's a comfortable environment, if you know that there are no stakes there, like if you make a mistake, nobody's going to care. Make that mistake there. Then when you get to the gig, when you get to the rehearsal where not everyone is your friend, when you get to the audition, you play it safe. Why is this framework so important, and why am I rating this so highly with 2 time-tested ideas? Because if you develop this habit of trying and failing at home and then playing it safe wherever you go, you're going to consistently raise the bar of what you're capable of doing. Because each time you try and fail something at home, guess what? You're actually getting better at it, and you're getting closer to being able to do that consistently, regularly at a gig. And what that does is it gives you this vocabulary and this arsenal of things, and it also shows you where that line is. If you don't know where that line is, you may try something on an audition and just fall flat on your face. But if you know, hey, every time I try that, I fall flat on my face, I'm not going to do that in the audition. I'm just going to keep to my instrument. I'm just going to play in time. You get what I'm talking about. Well, This has been a quick little how-to to get pretty good at your instrument. I love doing these practical guides because I think there's not enough of this in the music space. We tend to either get super hyper intellectual or we get super bare bones beginner, not talking about the theory at all, not talking about the philosophy of music at all. If you enjoy this type of video, I'd really appreciate likes and comments. They really help me out. Subscribe if you want more content like this. And let me know if you agree with my 3 takes on how to get pretty good at your instrument. Thanks and have a great day.